Okay, so I'm back to visiting my nieces. One just left to lay in the hallway. Um, I did this whole thing completely different than the last time because this time we actually got to walk in. So we walked for a little over a mile and then went and got ice cream. So they're being good now. I got this one down here. And the other one out the door. Yeah. So nice and peaceful. I've been in a really good mood today. And I thought I shared these before, but I think I had ended up losing them. Well, I didn't lose them. I just forgot where I put them. But I had this thought a while back that I hadn't seen any like four-leaf clover in a while. And the other day, it was probably like a month ago. Um, I don't know if it's that long ago. Anyway, I think I might have had the fan on or the window was open or a combination, and it blew some stuff off of my dresser. And then these all fell down. This one, it's got a dog hair in front of my face too. I can see the dog hair in front of me. I don't know. I think the leaves on this one just got bent when I was trying to put them in place. But in this one, if you can see, that's 5-leaf clover. There you go. Combined with my dog hair again. And this one's the best one because I had a better tape. Yeah, and there it is. But those are all from like 2012. I think that's the last time I actively was looking for anything like that. I wasn't really actively looking. I was just walking the dogs and then happened to look down and, ooh, look at that. And yeah. And this one's 3/28/12. Well, almost the 13-year anniversary of finding that one. The others, I'm pretty sure, was the same time frame, but I don't know exactly when that was or not. But I thought it was funny because I had been thinking about how I hadn't seen any in a long time, and then all at once those blew off of my dresser, and then there they were on the floor in front of me. It's like, I knew I had at least two, but I think I was kind of iffy on the third one. But yeah, two of them were 5-leaf clovers, so that was a little more interesting because I think that was probably the first time I'd actually found those. Also impressed that I was able to pick them and get them home without getting them messed up. Since back then I would have been walking 4 dogs, which is not terribly different than what I do now, but yeah, depending on the day. But the pack was much more laid back then. They were all less high energy, a little more contained. Well, plus my 3 got kind of gypped on their training because I wasn't in a good headspace. Ziva got the best training. It was still early in the marriage situation, but it was still kind of hit and miss. And then there at the end, it just kind of went. So, yeah, it's been a really good mood. Watched a Isotero video last night that I ended up watching the extended for, and I ended up rewatching it again last night because it was interesting for me, and I thought it was relevant, so I watched it again, yeah, and I'll probably watch it again for too long, to be honest, because that's just how I am. There's been so many thoughts. Like this morning, I just laid in bed for a long time and was thinking about different stuff. And I got up and was writing some of it down because I want to remember it. And yeah. Oh, I was like, I know there was something I was wanting to talk about in this video today. What was it? There's been kind of a few things. Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is Sunday when I did a video. I talked about how my mom and my aunt and grandma were wanting me to take them to my cousin's house yesterday to see the baby. And I just said on the video that I had no desire to do that, some kind of form, and talked about maybe having to set some kind of boundary if we were going to go up there, so they know that if they revert to their normal shenanigans of talking trash about everybody, then I wouldn't be taking them anywhere again in the future. But then I got a message Sunday night after I got home from my mom. My mom sent me a message from my grandma's house and said that it was off because everybody wasn't feeling well. It's like, oh, pity. So that whole thing fell through, and I didn't have to take any of the negativity on a 45-minute road trip. And, well, however long it would have been up there, and then another 45 minutes back, but I count that a win. And then yesterday, I was kind of torn. Like, I wanted to do a video, but at the same time, it's like I know my dogs have been a pain in the ass the last few times I've tried to do them with them in the car. And then especially on Sunday, because I didn't get to walk them first. And so Taz was like a special kind of showing his ass, more than normal. And then last night I was sitting in my desk chair, and I was kind of like just spinning, not all the way around, just back and forth, and was looking around thinking about the pictures that I have everywhere that I want to get hung back up, since I got the office and the bedroom switched around. And I haven't done that yet. Still haven't found the hammer. Haven't really looked real hard yet, but I'm kind of, I put the intention that I want to find the hammer, and I'm hoping it kind of comes to me, right? And I know part of that's going to be, as I shuffle shit around more, I'll probably stumble across it somewhere, but haven't been exactly motivated to do that yet. But I was thinking about it, and then my mom comes to the door of my office and says she has a package that has to go to the UPS store. I was like, that doesn't sound like it's a really pressing issue. Like, I don't particularly care at the moment. Her car is in the shop, and she's not supposed to be driving still, so she was wanting me to take the package to the UPS store and drop it off so she could get the money back on the thing that she's sending back. There's like curtains or something that didn't work out at my grandma's house. And I kind of messed myself up. But I said, are you going, or am I just supposed to do this? And then she was like, yeah, I can go. It's like, oh boy. Just put my foot in my mouth and I guess volunteered to have time because I didn't really want to just do her running for her. But it worked out. So the UPS store closed at 7, and it was like 6 o'clock when she says that she wants to go over there, or that she wanted the package to be dropped off over there. And I was just like, that's not a pressing issue. It really doesn't have to go back right now. It could go back tomorrow and it would be fine. But she was like, yeah, but if it goes back now, then I can get the money back sooner. It's like, yeah, whatever. But what happened? Okay. We had like 3 boxes of stuff that They were like little boxes, but I'd brought a bigger box in, and it was basically Goodwill stuff. And I was tired of shuffling stuff around, and I said, okay, well, if we have to go to the UPS store tonight, then we might as well take a box of stuff to Goodwill as well. And so she's like, I don't remember what she said, but it's like, well, it's your, or part of it's your stuff, because it's just like a stack that was on this box of stuff to go. So she starts going through that, and I'm going through the other boxes that I have, and I'm trying to put stuff in there, in the bigger box, without her being in the middle of it, because that's always an ordeal. And then, oh, you're getting rid of this? Why? That kind of bullshit. I think she did do that with something, but I don't remember what it was. But that's generally why I have a hard time getting rid of a whole lot of things. But some of the things I put in the box were like these little, I don't know. I think one was like a little sign that says something about, in a perfect world, every home would have a dog, every dog would have a home, kind of a thing. One of those kind of things. Or there's one that said, I'm not a crazy dog person, you're just a crazy people person, or something. It's like, that's not really me. But she got them for me because she found them somewhere and she thought they were cute. And so she got them for me. And so they went in the Goodwill box yesterday. And that was kind of a hassle trying to get it in there with, the boots. I had a pair of boots that I had ordered online that looked like they were going to be really cute, but then when they showed up, they were like really cheaply made and not real impressive at all. So, and I don't remember why they didn't go back, but whatever reason, they didn't. And so they went in the box, and so she said something about that, and it's like, you don't have to go through the stuff I put in the box to go. That is not a necessity. It's really not. And she's going to get her feelings hurt at some point, so yeah. So I get this box of stuff together. Now, it was a big box, and got it the fuck out of there. I was happy. And there were several things that I didn't want her looking at that I was able to get in there that she did not see. And so it's fine. Right. So we go to the UPS store, and there's a big long line. It's like, I called her and was like, I don't remember what I said. Something about if she'd have a problem if I left and went down to Goodwill to drop the box off and then went back to pick her up. And she's like, this is a bad area. I don't want to get locked out of the store because you're gone and blah, blah, blah. It's like, weenie. Well, plus her purse was in the car. But all the same, whatever. So I waited on her. I thought that Goodwill closed earlier than it did. I looked it up. And it's like, oh yeah, we got time. We're good. We got time. So, yeah. So we get the package dropped off, go to Goodwill, get the box dropped off, we're on the way back home. And I said, are we stopping anywhere else? And she's like, we could get ice cream. It's like, I would rather have real food because I had a couple cookies and it's like, I don't need any more sugar. But like ice cream was the only thing she was in the mood for. It's like, okay, so we're just going to skip it. So, as we continue on and are on our way back home, she says, I would like to go over to your brother's house. And I said, you should probably call to see if they're home. And she said, no, I don't think I will. I just want to go over there. I said, so you just want to drop in inconveniently and make them have to deal with you if they aren't there or whatever else is going on. And she's like, well, if I call them, then they're going to have some excuse as to why I can't come over. And I really want to see Gracie. It's like, all right. So I was like, okay. I thought about it because, like, normally my brother and I will, like, text each other and, give each other heads up on that. And it's like, I'm driving, I can't text. And it's like, I refuse to just ninja him, as he calls it, by appearing without having let him know first, right? I'm just not going to do that. So I grabbed my phone and I went ahead and called. And she was all sorts of pissed at me because I had, picked up the phone and was calling him. And I was like, I'm not doing it your way. Nobody likes that. Nobody appreciates that. So I called him and he had been napping, I think. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So we ended up coming over here last night. And she got to hang out with Gracie for a little bit. And I think Gracie fell asleep on her at one point. And it was fine. But I was kind of proud of myself because in the spot, it's like, she's trying to do things that way again. She's trying to pull me back into the shit and just make me go along with whatever stupid thing she comes up with. So ninjaing my brother, and it's like, no. I just picked up the phone and called because it's like, I absolutely will not do that. And since I couldn't text because I was driving, so I was like, all right. So, I sat at the table with him and his wife for most of it, and we were talking about horror movies. Jen mentioned something about the first Saw movie. She knew how it was going to end and all that. Okay, so what I started it and I told them that I'd saw these the Smile movies, right? And I said, even though I saw what was going to happen in the second one, about as soon as like one character died and it went to the next thing, it was like I knew where it was going, but it was still a wild ride to get there. It was still a really good movie. And then she was talking about how she knew what was going to happen with the first Saw, so she never got past it. It's like, I've watched 7 of those recently. And I feel like you might not have fully known quite like you thought you did. It's like, because it keeps, there's, it expands. There's more to it. There's more going into it and all the crazy shit. But she said she just never had any interest to get back into any of the others. It's like, yeah, you should probably go finish the first one first off and try again. But yeah, we were talking about just stuff with that, and I talked about this one that I had seen on Netflix, and I said that I had absolutely loved it because it didn't get messed up with the Christian themes along the way. And like there was no, I don't even know, it was like these people were checking out this, it was like a house or small castle kind of a, I know that sounds really crazy. I don't remember what country it was done in or anything, but I remember one of the biggest things that I loved about it was it didn't have the whole in-your-face Christian theme along with it. And it's like, ooh, what's happening? Like, they're not talking about any of that bullshit, because as soon as, anybody brings religion into it, it's like, all right, we know where it's going. Hell's the be-all, end-all, end of the thing, and blah, 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 and all that bullshit. Good versus evil, yada, yada, yada. But it didn't touch on anything like that. It was just like scary shit happening in this like haunted house and the things happening to the friends that were there exploring it and all sorts of crazy shit. So I was looking on Netflix for this movie and I couldn't find it. But it was probably, let's see, 2025 now. It was either 2021 or 2022 probably that I watched it, so I don't remember what it was or anything, but it was really good, and I was really pissed off that I don't remember what it was or anything. But oh well. But I was trying to find that, and when I was looking, like I went into something with Netflix horror movies, and this one called Thanksgiving came up. It's like, I feel like I'm going to have to watch that. I know, I like, Jen and I watched the preview for it, and it's like, that feels like it could be kind of intense, and I think Eli Roth made that one or something. I don't know. Have to go back to those details and revisit it, but it looked really interesting. It's like, okay, I'll watch it. It's been a while since I've just browsed through Netflix horror movies, and sometimes that pans out, sometimes it doesn't. But I was talking to her. She said she likes getting into like the ones from like South Korea or something. It's like, the problem that I have with some movies on that end is I tend to at least somewhat multitask. So if it's requiring me to look at the screen the whole time to read the subtitles, then it's not going to work out. It's like, wait, now what? Wait, now what? And I'm just going back and forth. It's like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. But yeah, like I've started a few that were kind of that way, and it's like, can't multitask, and I really want to multitask. Yeah, especially cleaning. Cleaning is lame anyway, so I might as well make it interesting. So I brought my mom over here, right? Back to that point. And, well, I guess I was still kind of in it. I just got sidetracked with the conversation that I was having with my brother and sister-in-law. I did not get the opportunity to tell them about, I had this thought, and I wanted to, where I wanted to talk to them about the cop that interrupted my video the other day. I was thinking about that some more. So in Sunday's video, I was kind of revisiting this whole suicidal point in my lifetime, and talking about the divine intervention aspect of it. And when I looked over, there was a sheriff SUV that was pulling up with the window down to talk to me. It's like, oh shit. And luckily I wasn't even crying at that point in the video. But I paused the video, got out of the car. See, the funny thing is, I thought I had said on the video that I just noticed a sheriff that wanted to talk to me or something. But apparently most of that conversation happened in my head, from what I revisited on the video. So it's just like all at once I'm like, oh, he wants to talk to me or something, and like pause the video. And then when I came back, I was kind of laughing because it was a sheriff that, came over and was checking on me to make sure everything was okay. The thing that didn't register until I was watching the video was I very clearly remember that he was wearing this orange shirt with like blue stripes, but it did not occur to me until that evening, after when I was revisiting it, that he'd been off duty. Like, it just did not make the connection. So yeah. But yeah, then, of course in the video, I had this like meltdown because this cop came to check on me to make sure everything was okay. And I was like, I really need to talk, or I really should tell my brother that story. But it's like, my mom was there. I was not going to tell that story in front of her. So yeah. Even though I've talked before about how, like, I don't think, okay, since she's operating at a lower frequency anyway, I don't think it would have been a problem to talk about it, and it would have gone right over her head, because a lot of things do that. But I'm still not taking that chance. So I texted my brother about it last night, and he kind of laughed at me. I was like, it was just one of those things. It's like, I think a big part of why I cried, because it was an intense wave of emotion that hit me, was it's like, I've spent all this time trying not to actively grow my channel. I'm just doing the thing that I know I'm supposed to be doing, and then let the universe take it where it's meant to go when it's meant to be there. And not being in the middle of where it goes and when it goes either. And so the fact that the sheriff came over to check on me and I actually owned up to what I was doing, I mean, that was a big piece in and of itself, because like I don't say anything around most of the family about it because I don't want anybody knowing about it. And then, like the one day that Gracie let it slip in front of my mom, because my mom was looking something up on the computer for her, like I think Hammy and Olivia videos. And she just kind of grinned and was like, "What's your YouTube channel?" It's like, my mom was focused on her computer, and I just like mouthed no and, shook my head. It wasn't the lots of shakes. It was just to get the point across that was not okay to talk about right then. And she let it go, which I was really impressed that she let it go as quickly and as easily as she did, because she's 8. But she let it go. And yeah. But I talked about, that was the week I had the dream where I talked about like it was like the twin flames arm was reaching through time and space. And I was like in this car/raft thing on the water. And it's like the only thing that really screamed car about it was like, I think it had like a little bit like of a shell, I guess. And the thing where I buckled the seatbelt. And then I like grab onto this arm that's reaching through time and space that didn't register as reaching through time and space. Until later. But then I like brace myself with this arm and then look up as I'm being pulled down the river, and it's like there's these big, thick, black clouds in the sky that are just churning, and it's like I have nothing to do, but nothing I can do but hold on and just brace myself, right? And I wondered if part of it was related to that. I feel like it's yes, but I feel like everything there has so much layers and depth to it. So yes, it was dealing with those things and the emotions of that and everything, but at the same time, not exclusively that thing, because that was also the thing where I had not been on social media for a long time, right? And then so back in the fall, I had a dream that made me realize that I'm the runner in this whole connection, right? And that it wasn't, I've never met him, so that's still kind of a whatever, but it's like at the end of the day, I've always been running from myself. That was the big thing that I realized. And it was that dream where I was talking to a waitress, and like the place that we were at, because it seems like I was there with my mom, honestly. It seemed like the place that my parents took me for my 21st birthday as a rite of passage to get me my first alcoholic beverage, because rite of passage, whatever. And I had like no interest in drinking at the time even. So it was just like, whatever, cool, I'm going out with my parents and they're going to buy me a drink. Woo. But it was this place in Indy called the Jazz Kitchen. And they had good music. That was the biggest thing, was the music, because back then I got really into big band and swing music. And Yeah, Jazz Kitchen's not far off. I don't remember what they were playing or anything, but it was still similar genre type thing. So that's where we went. So the dream kind of reminded me of that location. There was like a stage up front, and I was sitting at a table that was like a few tables back, away from the stage. And the stage was lit up, and I didn't see anybody on the stage, but I also had my back turned to it. So I'm like facing the darkness and talking to this waitress. And the waitress says she officiated a wedding over the weekend. And when she said whose it was, she said his name. And I like, I like just had this wave of emotion that just like came in, and kind of going back to that point of, oh fuck, is everything I know wrong, right? But like I felt myself actually jump back into my body to wake back up. It's like that's an experience I've never had before. Like I literally felt myself, I go from sitting at this table in this dream to feeling myself jump back into the body to get away from the dream. And in the process, I hear him say, "It's you, my love." And I hesitate enough to say, "I know it's supposed to be," and then like woke back up anyway. And there were some weird feelings that day. And then I spent some time meditating that evening and made the connection that I'm the runner. It's like, oh shit, that makes sense. Because the biggest thing is like, I would have pegged me as the chaser because it seems like there's been lots of things that I've chased in my lifetime, relationship wise and all this stuff. But then when I really stop and think about it, it's like they were all, the things that I chased were an avoidance of things that would require me to step more fully into who I'm here to be. And yeah, when I made that connection, then I was just like, oh, that makes sense. Makes a lot of things make a whole lot more sense, actually. But then, yeah, also gave me some things to think about, I guess. And I am pleased with how tired these dogs are right now. She has not budged. I think she might have oozed a little further, but yeah, but she hasn't budged. But anyway, when I realized that I was the runner, the thing was, I realized I was always running from myself. So I was like, well, I don't want to always just run from myself. I want to like kind of embrace that. However I do that, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. But I know that I want to figure it out. So yeah. So figuring it out, I go. And that runner point was a big one. But then when it came to the other dream, threes, okay, the one where he's reaching through time and space. And it's like, I feel myself getting pulled down this river, and all I can do is hold on to this arm reaching through time and space. It's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is it's kind of terrifying, you know, and at one point I was like, tuck my face. And that was kind of all I could do. So yeah. So then I made the connection that since I was the runner, it's like, well, then does that mean I'm supposed to be the one that does something to kind of call this connection back into the physical world? Because that's a whole thing too. And, you know, it's kind of a really weird thing to think about, because it's like he has a life and actually has like stuff that worthwhile stuff that he's created, right? And it's like my life, haven't had that. It's like, I'm at the point of, what do I have to lose, right? So basically I have nothing to lose and everything to gain potentially, but then that takes a whole lot of trust in the universe and the powers that be to guide the way. So yeah. Since I had that thought, it was like, okay, well then I've been avoiding Instagram all this time. What is the usefulness in that if I'm the one running from the connection? Right? So then I had this moment where it's like, okay, well, I think it's time to be able to let myself get back on Instagram again, right? So Instagram being the place that started this whole thing. You know, it was funny because when the whole Instagram thing came about for me was in 2020, because I have revisited my original post. And, you know, I was working at the one factory at that point in time, and I remember thinking that I had no interest in getting on any other social media aside from Facebook, because it seemed like everybody that I knew and had interest in connecting with was already there. I was like, yeah, I don't think I have any interest in any other social media. And then I had like this really strong push where it's like the universe is like telling me like, nope, you're going to do this thing, whether it kills you or not. Just suck it up and do it. You know, so it's like, all right. So I get the Instagram account. And I think my hair was almost normal back then, kind of like this. A little reddish tone, but not much. This is the result of the bleach didn't get far enough. And I've been thinking about doing it the sugar color. I don't know. The fuck. The color depositing stuff that's about this color. I thought about just doing that in my bangs since there's no green there. But then my whole bangs would be that color, which would be okay, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know. I might not. I probably will at some point because it's just kind of driving me nuts. But anyway, so I start the Instagram, and like the first one was like, I don't know what to do here. So I just started following a bunch of bands that I had been listening to for however long, and then musicians in the band and whatnot. And it's like, then weird stuff. Just, I don't know. I had a few posts. I think the biggest one was in that time frame. I had some sort of weird ad pop up on my phone, and it was this for the stuffed Anubis, and he has like violet eyes, and I looked at it and it's like, I love this thing and I need this thing, so I bought it. So I think either my second or third post was a picture of the stuffed Anubis. And yeah, Egyptian mythology is kind of more interesting here lately and pulling me back in. But that was kind of the start point on that. So it's like, I don't know what's behind this. I'm starting to kind of figure some things out, I think. Or maybe not. And maybe I'm just kind of winging it, seeing what the hell happens. That's about, I'll call it that. That's about that's kind of how I do life. What the hell? Yeah. But, I've started with this stuffed Anubis. And then, I was watching, like, Aaron Doughty videos back then, Victor Odo and some of those, and got into meditation for a while and tried that. And at one point, I don't remember the time frame, but at one point I had this vision. I had I was in this room, and it had kind of like this aqua blue lighting, and it was like the kind of color that I had noticed on the first live stream, I think, of his that I had gone into. And of course it felt cozy to me because I've always been into like the weird lights, and I think somewhere I have a picture of, like, from undergrad. I think it's in my photo album on my desk, to be honest. But I have, like, this picture where I had, like, the blue rope lights all the way around the bottom of my loft. And I have this desk, and, I had my had a little disco ball above my computer monitor, and just, like, the fun lights and a bunch of beta fish and all sorts of weird stuff. But it's like, at that time, it was the first kind of branching out into this weird stuff that I was doing, and I really liked the lighting. And I just remember, like, I don't even remember why I ended up with that specific color of lighting. But then I think my mom got them for something else, and then they ended up going with me. But then I just always had these blue lights, and there was, like, this cozy space where I could, like, kind of hide out in my shell. Yes, in my shell, before I really fully grasped that whole shell thing. And this is all, like, coming into context now that I'm making these other connections, and know that the astrology actually means something and isn't just a bunch of crap like church had me convinced it was supposed to be. It's like, hey, this shit actually means something, and, like, the stars and the planets doing things, they are connected. And, like, my whole birth chart, like that pattern app that I've talked about on here, it's like the stuff that thing comes up with is pretty impressive. And it's like, oh, you mean there's, like, real things happening to contribute to my feelings on this stuff and for me acting a certain way or whatever. So yeah. Anyway, how did I get there? Oh, so going back to January, I got the sense that I was supposed to get back on Instagram. So I did. Just in time to, of course, start following this other band that he's a part of. And there was a post on the band page that had a comment I had put on YouTube. and all at once, there it is at the top of this thing. And it was on, like, the lead singer's personal page and then the band page. And it's like, haha, there I am. So that was a weird experience, and that kind of made me think of that whole bracing myself thing. And I think the dreams are kind of like insight for what's coming, but then the majority of what's happening is the stuff that's, like, under the surface and, like, energetically speaking. So, of course, it takes a while for things in the energetic, ethereal type planes to make it to the physical. So it's like, I don't know how much more there is to that, but that's a whole thing too. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I'm feeling the inclination more often to comment, like, on videos and, like, random posts. Currently mainly on YouTube. And it's generally tarot readers like ESO and Kino and Gem Goddess and Nordic Light and White Feather Tarot and all those fun things. Sometimes it's, like, the twin flame specific stuff. I think one page is, like, spiritual universe, and another one is, it's another spiritual something. It starts with a G, but I don't remember what it is. But, like, I'll comment on there when there's something, when I've watched a video and it's like, hey, I have something I could say about this, like talking about the thing with realizing that I'm the runner in the connection. And it's like, oh, that changes everything. Yeah, talking about the dreams and all this stuff. And as I've started to do this more and more, I've had this sense that, okay, back in June, when I was still early on doing the YouTube thing, I mean, I was getting a little more comfortable with it. And, like, while I was cat sitting for the one family friend that was out of town, and well, like cat and dog sitting. I started doing some videos over there, and I had like a week where I got to a point where I was doing videos all the time. It was like 1 to 3 videos in a day, and I think I did at least 2 most of that week because I had space outside of the house and away from the dogs and all that stuff where I could. Of course, I was with their dog. That'll be happening again before too long, but unless I get out of there sooner. But in the meantime, the plan is to be doing that sometime in May again. Probably not as much YouTube time, but that's kind of not the point. Anyway, just a random tangent. That was that time frame. I think it was after then. I had this sort of sense that the biggest thing at that point in time for me to do was to basically get out and be seen. I was like, that's kind of a weird mission. Just get out and be seen by as many people as possible. It's like, okay. And whether that was going to class, whether that was going to freaking Walmart or whatever, it's like, just go be around where people are. It's like, that is a really weird thing to feel like I'm supposed to be doing, but okay, I'll do it. And I think in one of the videos I did back in June, I talked about how it was kind of like just energetically going around and tapping people on the shoulder. And then, like, when the time is right, then I'm going to have connected with all these people in some kind of way, even if just in passing. And when I get lined up with whatever the universe has in mind, because of course, we're still taking it one step at a time. And I have some ideas of different things that I feel like are going into this whole thing. But at the same time, I'm not trying to be too attached to any one of them. And yeah, I'm just surrendering to the process and doing what I feel like I'm divinely guided to do, I guess. And part of that is just going around and being seen, and obviously I stand out in a crowd, if no other way than the hair, but usually the outfit. Okay, I'm going to show this. So I found this shirt, and it's not one of my main genres that I listen to, and to be honest, I had to look up I had to look up like bands that actually fit in that genre. But I loved this shirt so much. Okay, so it's got a rainbow, and it says death metal. From this 80s tees website. And I was so excited, because then I found out it kind of works with these pants that were in my bathroom for like a month and a half. And it's like, technically they're Halloween. And right there, it's like, how does she think that goes together? But it does, because there's like a little color, like there's a little bit of the orangey colors and a little bit of like the purpley colors and whatnot. Anyway, I see it in my head. And that's enough for me to make it. Oh, here, it's in this leg. See that kind of color? Yeah. So, you just got to find the right spot on the pants. My mom used to make fun of me because she said I would literally find something that had like the one color that was the least amount in a shirt or whatever, and pair it with like random pants or socks. And she always made fun of me for like the way I connected things. It's like, no, it's like I've talked before. It's like I am basically my own art project, right? So like whatever I do in my craziness, that's part of what I'm supposed to be doing, right? That's just part of who I am. And I talked the other day about being at the children's hospital with my brother's family for Gracie's eye doctor appointment, and sitting in the waiting room, and then there's a Mennonite couple that comes over, and they were kind of going back and forth with conversation off to the side somewhere before they finally gave in and went in and sat on the bench, the next bench over from me. But it just felt like a thing, right? So, like, I am confident they probably had some thoughts about me and all that, and that doesn't matter. But at the same time, the experience of it, it's like, it was still kind of uncomfortable when they first sat down, and I was trying not to be judgy myself either, because, I mean, y'all know how I feel about religion if you've been watched any of my videos long enough. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, I saw the shirt and I was really excited by it. And then there's enough of the little colors that kind of can be picked up in the pants that was like, yes, I'm doing that. And I was really excited. And, you know, not hugely death metal per se. I'd listened to a little bit of everything. And usually like the harder types, that's going to be something my brother introduced me to. And, you know, I don't get into all of it, but usually there's going to be like a song or two somewhere along the line that I get like obsessively into for a while. And it's like, okay, we're doing this again, you know, so, yeah. But I was really excited about the shirt. And I gotta say, when I saw it online, the colors looked a little different. And kind of wish I would have gone with the red one, to be honest. And it's a women's cut, but it's a weird women's cut because it's like normal human sizes and not itty bitty twig sizes. So like I have this shirt as an extra large and I probably should have gotten a large, right? And this was after I sent it back and got a replacement because I had ordered a 2X because I was expecting it to be the little twig size and it wasn't. And then, yeah, like I had gotten the last woman's shirt that I got was a large and it fits like super glue. It's like peeling it off kind of a thing. So we went a little big and we should have gone a size smaller, but this is why I usually go with men's sizes if I can, but they didn't have it in this color. But this looked more like berry online or on my phone, and it's more maroon in person, which interestingly, the way I'm seeing it right now, it actually looks like it did on the webpage. I mean, because of course I'm looking at it through my phone, but it looks a little different in person, I guess. So anyway, yeah, I was just all excited by the shirt because it's got a rainbow and it says death metal, and that's fun. Yeah, but I listen to like a little bit of everything, so tend to be more new metal, metalcore, but yeah, that's all right. I also have like really poppy stretches of time too, so it's like whatever. I was thinking poppy like pop music, but there's a band called Poppy, so hey, I like them too. So yeah, anyway, a random side tangent. How did I get there? Oh, the being seen thing, right? So I feel like that's a big part of who I am. You know, that whole, what was it? It was Uranus conjunct my Leo Venus. And a whole lot of go be your own art project and stand out in the world, right? So, yeah, there's so much of that I have to do and that I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that sounds probably shallow and vain, but like, astrologically speaking, it's dead on. It's just like, it just makes sense with who I am and like my personality traits. So yeah. But, you know, I feel like a big part of that even is because this thing that I'm a part of is so much bigger than me. And I can remember specifically praying at various points along the way about wanting to bring change to the world, right? And obviously, that's not something, okay, with my super crab placements, hiding me in the 12th house, I have the big inclination to hide away and disappear when things go wrong or scary or get scary and like all that fun stuff, right? So it's just there's so many layers to this whole thing. So I had this whole twin flame thing was the thing that kind of grabbed me by the hand and forced me to keep moving even when things got scary and really hard and I didn't want to, right? So because he had some kind of spotlight and he needed to be in a spotlight so I could find him, but then how was he ever going to find me? So so I started the YouTube channel on 11/11/23, which technically 11/11 and 123. So there's that, and that was a big deal, right? So I started the YouTube thing, and I think I did like somewhere between 7 and 10 videos, and then I had to take a break and like walk away from it for a while because it was so stressful because just that little bit of starting the channel. And back then I was doing much shorter videos. And usually getting in like, I think the longest one that I did back then was like 45 minutes probably, but usually 15, 20 minutes to 30, 35, I want to say. Yeah. And it's like, after I got into it, then it started getting a little easier. And then I had to face the fact that this dog just started wagging her tail. She flipped it a couple times. I think she's still asleep. She did turn over, however. Yeah. But yeah, like just starting the channel and starting the thing was enough to, like, that completely blew away everything that I had thought I was capable of doing up until that point, because I wasn't meant to dream big and to, I always had these kind of visions in my head, and like there were certain things like I could see, I haven't talked about the 5 guys that I've seen since I was a senior in high school, and I didn't see it exactly as I'm seeing it more now, because of course it was a different group of people, but I always felt like I was really close with this group of 5 guys and we were here to change the world together. It's like, okay, well that seems like a lofty aspiration, right? And let alone to have it be this like vision that I'm seeing. And yeah, so, that's a whole thing too. Oh, I don't know. We'll try to get there. Okay, so it's like I'm looking at like the problems, like the stuff with my mom, like where we used to butt heads really hard when I was growing up, and how I always felt like I was a problem for her and my grandfather, especially, and it was like the fact that I exist is a problem and, somehow wrong. And so I had to deal with all these big feelings of feeling like I wasn't meant to be here, and yet here I am. So what am I supposed to do with all that, right? And, like even there's one point my senior year, no, not senior year, freshman year, because one of the seniors was a bully. Right. It was a senior, he was somebody my mom had babysat. My mom was like best friends with his mom, and yet this dude was a total dick to both me and my brother. And my brother, was in the same grade as he was, but I had a locker next to one of his friends and just dumb shit. So the friend was really nice, and I had this tendency back then. It was kind of like when people were genuinely nice to me, I felt like there was a problem with that. They must not know who I am or whatever. But it's like I always had this tendency to try to do things to actively make them step back or disappear. Because my world, nice people weren't supposed to be the ones that had any kind of connection with me, right? So, especially when there was no that guy, we weren't friends. We just had the lockers next to each other, and he was an upperclassman, and as a way of kind of pushing him back, I think was a big thing, was like, so silly kid. I put a note in his locker saying that I liked him, and I didn't really like him, to be honest. It was literally just trying to make him step back. And because I didn't like people getting close. That's the biggest thing, I think, was not wanting people close at any level, because that usually set me up to get hurt at some, the ones that tried to get close were usually a big problem. So it's like, keep the ones that seem to be nice away, because at some point, they'll let you down too, kind of a thing, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to sit with that stuff. I don't even know why they came up other than the bully thing. But, of course, he was on the football team, and he freaked out, because that's how they do. And I think that's the biggest thing was, there's a part of me that sees the front and that you're trying to be nice, but then knowing there's something deeper there, essentially making people face the stuff in themselves that they wouldn't be comfortable with, like the mask of the niceness, showing that it's just a mask, kind of a thing. And that kind of makes that Hyoka empath thing make more sense too. Yeah. But I've always done that. It's like people that I don't even know how to explain that. It's literally a means of keeping people back and exposing them to the places where they're not truly authentic to themselves as well. That's kind of weird. But it's kind of true. So yeah, and I had a dream about the ex that I thought I would marry one day, even though he did not fit the things that I knew were supposed to be true for the person I'm supposed to end up with. Supposed to. Because I was writing about that earlier too, because it's when I was in high school, I had this day where I was thinking, how cool would that be to find out that I left myself clues all along the way to try to remind me of who I am or whatever. And the thing that I was thinking about specifically on that was in my senior year, I did this English composition class to get college credit before I got to college. And because English was kind of my thing. And so I did that, and we did this one project that we were kind of messing around with name meanings and whatnot. And I'd known that Sarah means princess, but I definitely never felt like that in my lifetime. And so, I mean, shy of the like first 7 years of my life when I was daddy's little princess or whatever, and then, you know, all hell broke loose when I turned 8, and then he became a bully like everybody else. So, you know, that there again, going back to that point of kind of, it's like my energy forces people to see themselves at a deeper level than they would otherwise, you know, beyond the mask, you know, because the masks are temporary, you know, and like until I was 7, you know, that was the big thing. And my mom always made it a big joke because I went from daddy's little princess to daddy's little fart head, but it's like all that meant was at a time that all hell broke loose for me, he became a bully, you know, and then it was like, no, you don't mean anything. You're not valuable. And then, you know, it's just like, then I got sucked down this path of like the suicidal ideation and all that. Why are you digging the carpet again, dude? Hey, it's not going to get any softer. She's like, you could get my blanket. Our blankets are in the other room. But yeah, you know, that's interesting. Because I thought I mentioned he was a junior when I was a freshman. I mentioned him and that niceness, and I think that's exactly where it goes back to, was that point of nobody is genuinely nice, right? It's like, it's always a mask, you know, and the mask is always going to come off for me at some point in time. So let's just make it come off sooner than, you know, risk getting hurt unnecessarily. I think she probably knew I was talking about stressful things. Because she was in there napping. Now she's in here holding my hand. Yeah. I'm going to have to spend some time with that too. That whole because this is the first time I've really put that connection together with the dude with the locker, and then going back to, you know, when things kind of changed and when my dad kind of became a bully for me and all that. And it's like, you know, they talk about how cycles repeat themselves until you learn the lesson, or, you know, the lessons will repeat until you learn it and can disconnect or whatever. Once you learn the lesson, you don't have to keep having the shitty situations. Thank you. Okay, so why did it get there? Oh, so, you know, of course, that guy freaked out because the little freshman kid next to him put a note in his locker saying she liked him. No, hardly. As a means of, please step back, kind of a thing. Because I didn't know how else to do it. I knew I made people uncomfortable just by, like, existing, you know, because, like, I always felt like my existence was the problem. And I think there's something, one of my gifts is to expose the stuff beneath the masks that people can hide behind, you know, like my grandfather, and, you know, his whole narcissism thing. And then I was the problem, and so they had to stop me, kind of a thing. And then it went to being scapegoated. Dr. Ramani talked about. She said the truth tellers are the ones that generally get to be scapegoated in the family. Yeah, that's me. The black sheep. And anyway, so after I left the note in that dude's locker, he freaked and took it to his football buddies. They loved it, right? And so then I come back to my locker one day, and he's there with 5 of his football buddies surrounding him, and he just looks horrified as he realized what's happened and that he's brought this whole situation down, and he looked genuinely apologetic that he had said anything. And, I think that was the biggest thing, was also making him realize the people he was hanging out with, because I knew Chris was an asshole, I knew, and Nick, I knew both of those two were assholes back then. And, they were 2 kids that my mom had babysat and thought they knew something about me. So, the time that we were in the same school building, which was really just high school. It would have been a brief time in elementary school, but not hardly noticeable, because for kindergarten and first grade, that was before the new elementary got built. So the elementary school that I went to at that point in time was connected to the high school. And then it was second grade that was the first year that it was in a different building. And I think that was my brother's 5th grade year. So it's like, of course they keep all the elementary grades separate for the most part. But they were still technically in that space at that time, because my brother was 5th grade, Chris would have been 5th grade, and Nick would have been 4th grade. But then, yeah, and Nick was one of those douchey dudes that, like, he was very much just trying to prove himself to Chris. So it's like, I never took him seriously. Chris was like genuine dickhead material. And yeah. And even then, in spite of being able to say he was genuinely a dickhead, I can also see that he was actively living from the wounded space because his dad didn't want hardly anything to do with him. So it's like, that has been one of my greatest burdens in my lifetime, but I think it's also kind of a blessing in a way, because I can literally see both sides of the story. I can see him being a total dick to me, but then I can also see where he's been abandoned in his own life and how that basically played into making him a dick to me. Oh, man. Okay. This is storytelling, y'all. Never know where it's going to go. So when I went back to my locker that day, and they were all standing there, and there's the 5 dudes that are kind of cackling and pointing and laughing at me, kind of a thing. And then there's the guy that brought it down upon me and set it up to go that way. And it's like, in that moment, I kind of, flashed to like this other space where it's like they were in the audience and I was on the stage. And, at the time, it's like, it felt like, just the stage of humiliation, but I think I have glimpses of, like, different things that I've seen in my lifetime, like, that I'm meant to do. And the biggest thing that I noticed, like, on that one was they were in the audience. and at the time I felt it as I was being humiliated on the stage, but then I also felt like in kind of a karma balancing itself sort of way, these guys that know and I can name as my bullies, at some point they're going to have to see me and the fact that in spite of all their efforts, I didn't off myself. And it's not like any of them were really trying to actively make me do that. Like they didn't, I mean, I can't say if the technology had been there back then that they wouldn't have been the type to tell me to go kill myself in the comments or something. But I always felt, like especially starting from my grandfather, right? I always felt like there were a whole bunch of people that would feel better if I did do that. And, like, wave. Okay. Like, I've spent my whole life being used to the pain. And somehow have managed not to, I know how I've managed not to submit to it, and that was specifically divine intervention. I've talked about that a few times. It was very much divine intervention that I'm still here now. And at the same time, I know that for what I'm meant to do in this lifetime, all that stuff will be necessary. All those experiences, because they've made me a lot stronger. But it comes down to like this whole twin flame thing, like I have tried to shut myself down in all the ways I thought I possibly could. And it was all this, my super crab tendency to go into hiding, revert to my shell and never come out kind of a thing. And like the twin flame thing is the thing that says you can't do that. You got to keep moving, keep doing the hard things and stepping more into the light. I've been thinking too about in the time that I started going back to class at Interpath, there was one day this guy was at the restaurant already, and I knew he looked familiar, but I couldn't remember why. And he and his wife and their 2 daughters had come to the class before when I had come a few times. And I ended up sitting next to him for a little while when he joined us. Excuse me. And he heard me talking to somebody else about that feeling of, feeling exposed. And, I talked about the night I was listening to music and 2 songs in particular. Actually, 1 song in particular. And I went from having this scene play out where I was yelling at my family for submitting to the bad behavior and allowing the abuse to continue when they knew it was a problem. They just tried to bury it and make it not be a problem. And just, despite the fact that, the kids might be feeling really shitty about themselves and that people are treating them badly, you're not supposed to make waves and not supposed to make the family look bad, right? My grandpa was all about how things appeared and you were not supposed to make that man look bad. And like that was the biggest thing, was I basically became the scapegoat because I was the one that was going to make him look bad at some point or some way. And I have spent a lot of time talking about how he was kind of not the best human. And I have no problems with the fact that he finally kicked the bucket. And I'm glad he finally kicked the bucket because, quite frankly, that expiration date was like 30 years ago, longer than it took him to actually get there because he was sucking the life out of everybody else, and keeping anybody else from finding their way in the world, But anyway, I go from having this scenario where I'm yelling at my grandma, and it was my grandma specifically because she was the one back in August when I was driving her back from the hospital after she visited my grandpa. She started on this tangent when we passed this neighborhood that my mom used to babysit, and there was a couple of kids that she babysat that had lived there, and my grandma starts in on this thing with, I really don't know how she wasn't arrested. Talking about my mom, it's like, excuse me, what? Because in that moment it was just this big revelation of she very much knew there were problematic things happening, and she chose not to make waves. She chose to just bury it and pretend nothing was wrong. So it was basically perpetuating the abuse, allowing it to go on, and allowing the shitty behavior to go on. And of course, me and my brother being the two of the main recipients of that whole thing. And like we've been dealing with anxiety and depression, all these things, and it all goes back to the toxic mindset in the family and all this stuff. And how did I get here? Shit. Never know where these things are going to go. Yeah, so, the guy, the guy from class that had been a while. Anyway, okay, so I'm talking about, having this song play that I was actually playing on YouTube on repeat, and I went from one scene where I was yelling at my family to this next scene where I'm in this space with the band for their music video. And I feel myself needing to go sit down by like a wall and just like kind of, shrink up and do this kind of a thing and just kind of hide out. And then, the thing that came to mind as the scenario is playing out in my head was, I was thinking about how I felt so exposed, and, the response I got back was, but that's a sign of growth. You've outgrown the old shell, and it's time to, find a bigger one, right? Find a better one. Find one that's more suitable to you now, because that's what crabs do, right? Outgrow a shell, go find another one. And that was kind of where I was at. So, but just having that feeling and that energetic sense of going from one situation with this toxic family environment into this other situation with like this band that I haven't met at this point in time, even though I've showed up on some social media things. Okay. Yeah. But I was talking about the feeling of feeling exposed, and the guy next to me thought the other girl was talking about that or whatever, and he said, "Are you a Cancer?" And she said, "No." She said, "I'm not, she is," and pointed to me. And, so we added him in the conversation for a little bit, and I told him that little story and said it was just that element of feeling, exposed and realizing it's time for a bigger shell and all that stuff. And he talked about, but if you can truly embrace who you are and allow yourself to be seen, that's goddess energy. And it's like, ooh, it's like, that's, and it makes sense because, of course, the brighter you shine, the more uncomfortable you're going to make people, for one thing. Oh, I'm reading this book. I just started it. Okay, so I brought both books, but okay, so I just started this one. And I love this. I have barely started it, but I like the goddess on the lion. I don't know her name. Honestly, I have no idea how to pronounce that. But really, I was really paying attention to that goddess on the lion's back kind of thing today. Because, of course, I've talked about, the twin flame thing and the whole Leo Venus, right? So it feels like really connecting to my heart space, which is in essence him. This foot's back. She just distracted me now. Anyway, the lion on the goddess, or the goddess on the lion's back, it just is really kind of stood out to me and kind of been sitting with me today. And of course, because the Leo Venus that I have and the counterpart that is a Leo, even though I haven't met him in person yet, it's like just finding all these little connections are just kind of interesting. I know I wanted to talk about this other thing. Do you have to potty? What is your deal? So this book is also very good. Yeah. And will you stop? Thank you. That's enough. That's enough. We don't need to hold each other right now. Just it. I think what I was thinking about this morning was dealing with stuff with my mom and whatnot. I've talked about how I feel like, the different, you got a potty? I think she's got a potty. Hold on. Okay, so I don't remember exactly how I got there, but I remember I wanted to talk about it, so I'm just going to carry on with that while the dogs are outside, and it's raining, so I gotta wrap it up. Anyway, it's about an hour and a half. So, I've talked a lot on here about how I know I'm meant to be a healer in some kind of way, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that is supposed to pan out, but it's really been a source of frustration when I feel like there's this part of me that I'm supposed to be able to do, and I feel so disconnected from it, and I don't know how to do that, right? And back when my uncle, who was ironically also a narcissistic type and has a daughter very much the same, who I finally canned on the Facebook friends as well, in my purging process on that end. Anyway, when my uncle was in the hospital dying, I remember getting really frustrated because of that point. It's like I feel like I am supposed to be a healer in some kind of way, but I don't know what that looks like or how that plays out, right? And then I had this really strong sense that you can't interfere in somebody else's life lessons. Like, you don't know what they're here for, and or what they're here to learn, and you can't get in the way of what they're here to learn, right? So I was reading this book, How to Pray the Shaman's Way, last night. I was finishing it. This is one of the books, it's not real extensively long. This is how the pages are, but there's 188 pages. I read the first 60 pages in the first night I was reading it, and I went ahead and finished it last night. I had a couple other days where I just read a chapter or whatever, and last night I was I want to get to this other book. So, because last time I checked out the Roar Like a Goddess book, I did not get it read. It's I want to read that this time. So anyway, I found this section where he's talking about praying for others, and it's ooh, this makes perfect sense for exactly that point of realizing you can't get in the way of other people's lessons, right? Okay. So she says, shamanically speaking, praying for others is more complex than praying for yourself. Unless you know how to pray for yourself effectively, your efforts to help others will probably fail. But once you have learned to get results from your personal prayers, you can apply those lessons to praying for others. Here are some reasons why. Oh, I got a sticker on it. Hold on. First, you don't always know what is best for others, even if your intentions are good. Perhaps their own essence, which is directly connected to spirit, knows that an illness will teach them something that they can learn in no other way. Perhaps it is simply their time to die, and no matter how much you pray, you will not be able to save them. Second, unless those you pray for want to be healed or helped in some way, they will not benefit from your prayers. Sometimes people have an agenda hidden in their illness or a problem they may not want to give up. Perhaps they want to punish someone else by being sick or to make people feel sorry for them. Perhaps they feel so unworthy of help that they cannot conceive of receiving your assistance and block any path that might lead them out of their difficulty. There are many reasons why a person might not want to be helped or might not allow help in. Third, if you do not pray correctly for someone, you may actually do more harm than good. If you believe that without your help they will surely go under because they are weak and ineffective, you just pour energy into your skepticism about them, and this increases their difficulty. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to pause this again, go let the dogs back in. Okay, so that was kind of interesting last night because my dad's got some issue going on with this leg, right? And the biggest thing with my father in general is he spends a lot of time moaning and groaning about literally everything. And I've told my brother many times, it's like life hurts and like there's no way of getting him out of his misery, basically. And nonetheless, when he goes moaning down the hallway and then moaning all night long because just everything hurts, like right now his leg hurts, so like, you know, my brother went out to lunch with him the other day because they're getting ready to leave, and he was all nice and everything, but then, you know, when they went to leave, he said my dad like rocked back on his heels and he thought he was going to fall over because he just couldn't get upright all the way. And I was like, I said that I'm having a real hard time feeling sorry for him. I don't feel sorry for him, to be honest, because I feel like a big part of this whole thing is that he is just wanting to forever be in that misery, right? You know, and my brother and I have talked about feeling like at some level he resents us because, you know, he married our mom and had kids, and then, there was that, and he did his obligation to take care of his parents. But basically, there was a relationship that was kind of the one that got away sort of a thing that I think he had. I don't know when it was before my mom, but I think the lady he was interested in ended up in Germany with the military or something. It was like, it makes sense that he would resent us if that was the life he wished he had followed, the path. But it's like, that's still not our fault, you know? And I think the biggest thing right now is why I can see it so much more for what it is, because I have set the energetic boundaries and I'm not letting people drag me back into their misery anymore. Especially him and my mom. And it's like, they know they don't have the access and it's driving them nuts, but they also, they keep poking and trying to figure out how to get the access again, because basically they're miserable in their lives, and unless they drag me and my brother back into their misery, they're not going to make it, kind of a thing. It's like, I refuse to do that anymore. I don't care if he goes moaning down the hallway. It's really irritating to have to listen to it. But, like at night I have like I have my white noise machine, that I like play Rain really loud. And then I have like some music thing on YouTube that I'll listen to that's like binaural beats kind of a thing. Um, so I don't have to listen to it as much. But it's like, in general, if I'm sitting quietly in my office and he goes moaning down the hallway, oh, it's like, oh, shut the fuck up, dude. And I can't not be that way, honestly, because I've literally lived this existence where it's like everybody's miserable, but nobody's willing to do anything about it. So they just sit there in their misery and accept the fact that this is all life will ever be. And I don't want that life. I had that life for a long time. And I've talked about how, me and my brother were not raised to have our own lives. And that's why we're realizing that we got to get out of here and not be able to, and not keep feeding into this bullshit, and as frustrating as it is that, he's already found his way out, and they're working on that. It's like, I know my opportunity is right around the corner. I don't know what that's going to look like. I know the universe has something amazing lined up, and it'll just, at the right time, it'll all come together the way it's meant to. I think they're playing. But, yeah, but I can't get drawn back into the bullshit, and that's like the big thing. And I think part of why I'm still here at this point in time, well, right now, it's to kind of hold space while my brother's disconnecting and getting out of here. I've talked about how, things have worked really well on that end where, like, I have all the water and he has all the earth. And, it's like I start making connections and then I share it with him and then he starts grounding it in, kind of a thing. And this is another thing I've been thinking about today. I'm not trying to go 2 hours, so hopefully I get this wrapped up soon. But like I was thinking the past couple of days, it's like I really, ever since this twin flame thing, it's like there's been times where I felt like I was the feminine in the whole thing, right? But then I feel like here lately I'm more operating from the space of the masculine. And what I think that is I've spent my whole life operating in the woo-woo spaces, right? And, I can lose myself in daydreams and visions and see things that I don't understand how I know, why I know them or whatever, like, Tyler's death and like that I was going to be 40 before things started to make sense for me and, like all that kind of stuff. But like, I was always disconnected from my body. So it's like, I have all this stuff going on up here, but I'm not able to bring it into the physical experience because I'm all up here, and then, like they talk about I know Natural Mystic, I've heard her talk about it, where the feminine operates in, the divine feminine operates in the upper 3 chakras and the divine masculine operates in the lower 3 chakras. And then, it's like bringing things together. So, pulling the masculine up into the higher spaces, bringing the feminine down into the lower chakra space. And what I realized today is like, okay, like the twin flame, the stuff he posts is like very focused on like mindfulness end of things overall. So it's like he's clearly working on, bridging the two within himself. And it's like, ultimately, that's why I feel like I'm so much in the masculine aspect currently, because I'm trying to ground these things that I've always seen and known into like the physical, and bring them together, and then of course they meet in the heart space, right? And so it's making sense. It's like, this is all a lot deeper than I ever tried to give it credit for. But yeah, like I said, I started journaling on some stuff with that stuff earlier, and I will be working more on that this evening. And, I was going to spend more time talking about that, I thought. But the big thing is just really realizing that it's like, that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm more in the masculine aspect of myself, because it's a matter of trying to ground in the stuff that I know up here in the woo-woo space, to ground it into the earthly sphere, I guess. So one of the things I was thinking about with this was because of this whole YouTube thing, right? And like, okay, so I felt like since I'm operating in the I felt like I'm existing more in the masculine area recently, and feeling him at more of the feminine level recently. And what I realized was it's, okay, so he was, at a time I was like not able to use my voice, he was using his very much, right? And even, adding some of the screaming into the music, right? And it's like, it served, basically it goes to that point of everything we do, we are doing as a team. So when I couldn't use my voice, he was using his even more in a way. So now that I can, I'm having to do this thing where I'm talking about it, and I'm talking a lot about him even, because at the end of the day, it's like, I know most of what I say probably sounds crazy when it comes to like the twin flame stuff and all that. But it's like, I have to talk about it because that's something that's bringing it into this, into the physical, and like grounding it in, now that I'm putting it out in this YouTube space, where at the end of the day, if I'm wrong, then that could be really embarrassing, right? But it's like, I've never been more confident that I'm not wrong about something in my life. I know that sounds probably kind of crazy, but I think that's why it's so important for me to do this and to get used to talking about the stuff that I never would have talked about before, because it is bringing it into, it's bringing basically the spiritual into the physical and uniting them together. But I have to do it within me, and he has to do his whole process within him before we can actually have any kind of connection in a physical, tangible existence, right? So yeah. Hour 43 minutes. I know, like, some of these longer ones, people will be like, oh shit, she went crazy long again. But it's always get to the more useful information toward the end, or start having fun at the end. This time I'm just kind of trying to make more sense of it, I guess. But like the other day I mentioned that he was doing a live stream, and I like clicked into it, and it seemed like he saw my screen name that I had joined and was grinning in connection to that. I don't know that, but I'm going to hold to that idea, even if it makes me sound crazy or whatever, because to me that suggests that he at least does know who I am at some level, and I've talked about how if I am making these connections because of him and who he is, and our connection that neither of us has really known about, but it's all come about because of this whole Instagram thing that I randomly felt inclined to join one day. yeah. It's like I feel like it's just bringing it back together and, ooh, excuse me, trying to ground it in, right? Yeah, but if he did in fact respond to seeing my screen name pop up, then that would suggest that he does know of the connection, right? And of course, with everything I've learned, if it's right, then he has to know something about it, right? So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because this is really long. And yeah, I'll do another one tomorrow, maybe. Probably, since I will be back with my trusty little Basset sidekick tomorrow. I think the doodle went into the other room to eat. And my dogs would like to see me again, and I'd like to spend some time writing or something. And now I got an hour and 45-minute video to watch. And then post. Oh well, I'll see what else I need to revisit tomorrow and maybe revisit it. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.